Today I'm here with Don Pack, commander of Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 5563 in Valley City, Ohio. And we're here to tape Salute to Service. How you doing, Don?
Good, how are you?
Good. You got some veterans in there we can go in and interview?
Yes, I got 4 in there.
All right, we're going to head on inside and do the taping. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Today we're at the Valley City VFW here in Valley City, Ohio, Post 5563. And sitting with me I have Mr. Jerziorski. How you doing?
Very good.
Very good. And you are a Army veteran, correct?
Yes, I am.
All right. When did you serve, Mr. Jerziorski?
From 1943 till 1946.
So you went in after, actually after Pearl Harbor and that, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
Drafted or did you enlist? Or?
I was drafted.
Obviously Pearl Harbor had happened, we were already at war. And, you know, did you graduate from high school or what was the circumstances leading up to it?
I was in high school and I had to leave. And I went to San Luis Obispo, California in the anti-aircraft division. And about a month later, they dissolved that and I was transferred into the 104th Infantry Division in Camp Adair, Oregon, and trained over there.
As an infantryman?
As an infantryman.
And which regiment did you wind up in?
104th, 415th Regiment, Company M, in the mortar squad.
60 millimeter or?
81 millimeter.
81 millimeter, wow,
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So were you the mortarman on the gun or were you like the fire direction
I was,
guy? Or?
I was the fella that had the vest on with 3 mortars in front and 3 mortars in the back, and I brought them up to the tube where they were firing them.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you went over to Europe then, right? Not
Yes.
the Pacific theater, okay. And how did you get to Europe?
We
Oregon's a long way from Europe.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the ship, but we landed at Cherbourg, and from then we got organized. They picked some fellas for the Fireball Express that carried supplies to the front. I wasn't selected for that, but I stayed with the mortars. I drove a Jeep with a trailer, and the trailer was loaded with the ammunition. And from France went to Holland, Belgium, then into Germany. And I contacted trench foot, they call that frozen feet.
Right.
And the medic treated me 3 times for that. All he did was take your shoe off, massage your feet, give you clean socks, and that was the end of it.
Send you on your way.
Yeah, and the fella that treated me, I was shocked that I met him in Ashland to one of our meetings.
Was this after the war or prior to the war?
This is after the war.
After the war.
And we still keep in touch.
Wow. It's a small world sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you went to like basic training in Oregon? Is that where you went?
Yes, and we were traveling east through Colorado.
Took a train all the way, I
Yes,
assume,
yes.
to New York.
And I drove a truck then, and also a Jeep with trailer.
So what was the experience like when you boarded the ship in New York City? Is that where you sailed
Yes,
from? New York?
yes.
So, I mean, at some point it kind of had to be a little bit exciting. You're getting a train, going to New York City, and you get on a boat. How long were you on the ship?
6 or 7 days.
Did you get seasick?
When I first got on and it sailed, I did get seasick. I was at the rail for maybe half a day, and after that, everything cleared up.
Got used to it, huh?
Yeah.
When did you arrive in Cherbourg, France?
I can't remember the date.
What year? I mean, it was sometime after D-Day.
Yes,
at that
yes.
point.
There was, when we come up to Cherbourg, there was still, the balloons were up, and our equipment was all wrecked in the water and along the shore, but we just went through that, and we did some cleanup, and they set up a fuel line from Cherbourg north, and we guarded that for a couple of days.
When you got there, how old were you when you were on the ship, when you joined the Army and stuff?
I think I was 19.
19.
Yeah.
So 19-year-old kid looking off the side of a ship pulling into France with all those balloons and everything,
Yeah.
and knowing what was going on. What was going through your head?
I didn't think I was going to make it.
No, it was a lot of stuff. Huh?
Yeah,
That's tough. But you did.
I did.
So, and how long did you spend in Europe?
We spent a year in battle.
And then after the war ended, how long were you over there? Were you part of that occupation force, or
I think we stayed maybe 4 months.
4 months?
Yeah.
And was that, I mean, from the point that the war was over and everything, was that, how did that feel, knowing that the war was ended and, you know, everything, and soon you'd be going home?
It felt good. Then they drove us. I didn't drive at this time, but I can't remember how we went, by train or a truck. We landed in a place called Camp Lucky Strike, and then from there we boarded the first group of our section went on a ship called Monticello.
Mm-hmm.
And a week later, I boarded with the second group on a ship called John Erickson. And then I can't recall how long we were on the ship, but we landed in New York, and the rest is history, I guess.
That had to be fun, though, huh?
Yes, felt good.
So how far did you get into Germany during the war?
Just almost to Berlin.
Almost to Berlin.
That's
So you went quite a ways then,
Yes.
in that year.
Yes.
Once the war ended, I mean, obviously there's a lot of animosity towards the German people at that point. You're fighting for a year, but how were the local people? Did they treat you well? I mean,
They were very friendly.
were they?
In fact, before the war ended, whenever we had mess, and we seen a lot of German people with pots and pans lining up
Mm-hmm.
for the stuff that we didn't eat, and our chefs give them what they
It
wanted.
was, yeah, I imagine it was pretty devastated by then.
And that felt good too, because they had nothing to eat.
So you came back home, and here you are in Valley City now. How long
Yes.
have you been here?
Since 75.
And you've been a member of Post 5563 ever since, or?
I think I joined up in 1980.
When you came back from Europe, how much longer did you stay in the Army? Did you get out right away? Or were you in a while? Or?
Well, they asked me to stay, and I wanted to get out. And there was a lot of stuff wrong with me, and I didn't want to say nothing to nobody because I wanted to get out.
Right. So what did you do in the civilian sector?
I got a job, different jobbing shops as a machinist, and finally got a job at Chevy. And I stayed at Chevy for 31 years.
You think that experience during the war shaped you later on in life, or?
It slowed me down. It wasn't as wild.
Yeah? Kind of matured you a little bit, maybe?
Yes, matured me.
Regret any of it?
No,
No?
No.
Never heard a veteran say they do, so.
no. I learned a lot.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for being here with us today on Salute to Service. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Salute to Service, and we're here with Mr. Donald Kramer from Valley City. Don's you're a Navy vet, correct? Right?
Yes.
And not just a Navy vet,
Vet.
but an aviation
Aviation
Navy vet.
Navy.
All right,
Right,
big
right.
difference, right?
Yeah, you bet.
All right.
I was an Airedale.
You were an Airedale, huh?
Right.
So when were you in the Navy?
1951, just after I graduated from high school, to 1955, 4 years.
Enlisted or?
Enlisted.
Enlisted. And did you, I mean, being in the Navy, did your planes go off of an aircraft carrier, or?
No. We were a patrol plane which had two big engines.
Mm-hmm.
We carried approximately, on a normal flight, about 2,000 gallons but we could go up to 4,800 gallons of gas. And fly for 24 hours without refueling.
And you didn't have in-air refueling back then either, so
No.
you had to land and refuel.
Yeah, right.
So you went to, obviously 1951, got out of high school, went to basic training?
Yep, basic training, Great Lakes. Actually, I ended up with the measles down there, so I ended up a little bit longer than I was hoping for, but went from there down to Jacksonville, Florida for aviation school training,
Right.
and went from there to aviation machinist mate school in Memphis, Tennessee.
So you were kind of like the mechanic on the plane more or
Yes.
less? Wow.
When I did fly, I was flying as a flight engineer.
Okay.
Okay, I was called a second mech because all the chiefs, petty officers were the plane captains, and I was second mech. But I took flights by myself as well.
So you got out of basic training out of Great Lakes, and obviously the Korean War had already started by then,
Yeah.
correct? Where'd you go from there?
Well, I went to school. You know,
Right.
I was school down in Jacksonville, school in Memphis, and then I went to Whidbey out in Washington. And I was there for about 3 months, and then we went to Kwajalein. And
Where's Kwajalein at?
That's somewhere between Guam and Hawaii.
Out in the middle of the Pacific then?
Out in the Marshall Islands.
Okay.
And we were out there for a problem or a project that we were assigned to, and we had flights every day, and that's as much as I'll say about that one. And,
So what kind of plane were you in though when you were flying? It was a fairly large plane though.
right.
Okay.
It was. We had a 11-man crew. We had the pilot, co-pilot, ordnanceman. We had radar, and 2 mechs, and we had a spotlight on the end of the wing that we could see for 10 miles if they turned it on and things like that.
So what were you looking for?
It was basically a sub-hunter.
The submarine hunter.
Right.
So Korean War's going on. Were you flying around the Korean coast a lot, or were you just out in the middle of the Pacific somewhere?
Well, we were considered, that was our sea duty. The squadron was self-contained. We had our own cooks, barbers,
Wow.
everything. You know, when we left, the whole thing
Whole
left.
left with you.
Everybody left. So we had people that fit into the rest of the thing, so that we weren't putting any pressure on anybody else. And then we flew from a base somewhere. We were out at Kwajalein for 3 months, came back to Whidbey for 3 months and fixed all our planes up and got them ready. Then we went up to Kodiak, Alaska, and I ended up going into ADAC with 3 other guys.
No, ADAC's in Alaska, right?
That's the last island on the Aleutians, that group that swings out from Alaska.
Right.
It's the closest one there is to Russia. And what we were was a small maintenance crew in ADAC to repair any planes that came in. Our flights flew, they have a flight that flew from Kodiak to ADAC with some patrolling in between, and then one that went from ADAC, patrolled and came back into ADAC. And then the next day, the one that had the patrol duty flew back to Kodiak, and we got another plane in.
flip-flopping,
Yeah,
yeah.
it kept flying. And I don't think that the weather was any worse than what I found in Wisconsin, in fact.
So you had mentioned you were from Wisconsin, so that was my next question. Did you like it in Alaska?
What was really, I thought was really funny was the fact that people say that your blood doesn't thin out when you're in warm water.
Right.
Well, Kwajalein was 110. Then we came back to Whidbey, and it was still kind of warm in Whidbey in the 80s and stuff. But then we went up to Kodiak and ADAC for the first 2 or 3 weeks. We couldn't find enough clothes to wear.
That's pretty extreme difference, though.
Oh yeah, it's and it was good weather, a lot of wind, a lot of snow, quite a bit. We had an earthquake up there.
you know, the Korean War is going on, and it doesn't seem like you were really engaged in the Korean War a whole
No,
lot.
that's right.
You were probably more interested in what the Soviets were doing with submarines and stuff. Yeah.
Anybody.
Anybody.
Doing, yes, right.
Well, Japan didn't have much of a navy left, I don't think, after
No.
World War II. So
No, I was only in there I had broke my leg in the service, and I ended up when I got to Japan, I was there about 2 months, and I couldn't walk.
right.
But we lost a crew. We lost a plane and 9 men somewhere out in the ocean. And
Just a malfunction, or
yeah, engine problems
Right.
or whatever. Anyway, they asked me to go back into my flight engineer's job, and I didn't feel I could get out of the plane fast enough, so
Right.
they sent me back to the States.
So you spent some time in Japan then
Yes.
during your time in the service.
Oh yeah, that was probably the most interesting duty I had. I managed to spend some time tootling around in Japan and seeing different things. I did have one gentleman that allowed me to see his Japanese garden. I was looking over the fence, and he says, "You want to see this?" And
Right.
took me in and showed me this garden that he had worked on every day. And
So, I mean, that's only like 5 years after the bombing of Japan
Yeah.
with the 2 atomic bombs. Was there any animosity between the Japanese and the Americans?
and as far as I've found, the people that we did meet
Right.
were very nice. It was, there was sometimes a language barrier, of
Right.
course, and things like that. But other than that, why, it was very interesting, and the people were interesting, and the country was interesting. And then I spent the last part of my service time down in Texas at a training station down there they were training.
Back in the heat.
Yes, they were training pilots for, they started off in just like two-wheel planes, then they went to tricycle landing gears, and then they came over on our side of the base where we had jets.
So a young man, you join the Navy, you go off for 4 years, and then you come back, and how do you wind up here in Valley City?
Well, I started off in Wisconsin. I was working for American Can in Wisconsin, and I was working in research. I worked in research for 18 years as a chemist.
Up in Wisconsin.
Yeah, a non-degree chemist. I don't have a degree.
Right.
And then we ended up getting a new director who was a PhD and said, we're going to have PhDs. So I went into manufacturing as a quality control supervisor. From there, I came down here and worked. I wrote test methods for all of our plants that we had. We had, plants in Shelbyville, Tennessee, and one in 2 or 3 in. Well, there's a couple here in Cleveland, and of course the plants up in Wisconsin. So I traveled extensively for a year and a half.
When did you come to Valley City?
1979.
And you've been here ever since?
Been here ever since.
How long have you been a member of Post 5563?
About 4 years, I believe it is, or
4?
4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Yes. I've enjoyed it. It's a very nice post to belong to. It's everybody knows everybody, and we all have a fairly good
Like family.
family. Yes.
Well, I want to thank you for coming by today and sharing your story with the Salute Service. With me today is Mr. Ken Ward and Richard.
Pavecski.
There you go. I'm going to let him do that so I don't tear his name up. Start off with Ken, because you kind of joined the Army a little bit earlier than Rich here. When did you go into service?
64.
64, right out of high school or
No, before I finished.
before you finished? So were you drafted or enlisted?
No, I enlisted for 3 years.
Any particular reason why?
get out of the neighborhood
Where'd you grow up at?
on near west side of
On the
Cleveland.
west side of Cleveland. And how about you, Rich? When did you join the service?
68,
1968?
yes.
Same thing out of high school, or
Pretty near out of high school.
yeah, drafted, enlisted, or
I was being drafted, so I enlisted for 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah, so I went in on a buddy system with somebody.
So you guys were supposed to stay together, right?
Yeah,
How long did that happen for?
it happened for almost the whole
Really?
tour.
Wow. I know a lot of guys that had gone into that, and 6 months later they never saw each other.
We had it in writing.
There you go. So, Ken, what did you do in the service?
I was a cannon cocker. I was in the artillery.
So you were shooting big artillery pieces.
Yes, when I was stationed in the stateside in El Paso, I fired 8-inch howitzers. And from there I went to Germany and we dropped down the 155 self-propelled. And when I went to Vietnam, I wound up on a 105.
Code, those are the smaller guns then.
Yes,
So you spent some time at Fort Sill then?
yes.
Fort Sill,
Fort
Oklahoma.
Sill, Fort Bliss, Kentucky, then Hanau, Germany, then our base camp in Vietnam was outside of Saigon.
And what about you, Rich?
I went into engineers, took Fort Knox, I believe it is. Then went to Fort Belvoir, and then our whole unit was told we were going overseas.
You got those orders that say Vietnam. You know there's a war going on. What's your first thought?
Well, I volunteered to go to Nam from.
You
I was,
did?
Yes, I was stationed in Germany. I could have served my last 2 years there, but I decided to go to Vietnam.
What was the experience like when you got over there?
Very different, very different. We fired direct support for the infantry, so we went on quite a few missions. And it got to a point where there were no bridges or anything. Everything had been severed.
Right.
So we went in air assault.
Which unit were you with when you were over there?
I was in the 7th Battalion, 11th Artillery, attached to the 25th Infantry Division.
All right. And what about you? When you come out of basic training or AIT and you find out you're going to Vietnam?
Well, they said it's easy for us when we read the orders where people are going. It says you're all going to Vietnam.
Okay. So you all got it together, right?
Yeah.
What did you think at that point?
I think, well, I don't have a choice. I'm going.
Right? And so you hit the ground over there and
And I thought it isn't that bad. But then I found out where I was going. They had to fly me over to one place, and then they come in every maybe 2 weeks or a month in my unit. And then when I seen them coming in, they were all dirty and scruffy and everything. And then we went out to our base, which was in the middle of nowhere. And I said, oh, well, here I am.
what's an engineer doing in Vietnam? I mean, building bridges, blowing stuff up? What are you guys doing?
Actually, we were making support for roads. Because every time they put a road down, it's very difficult to put a mine in the asphalt or something
Right.
like that. So they like to put roads up.
Any major experiences over there you want to share that, stand out or?
Well, half the year was wet, a lot of rain and mud. The other half, it was like powdered sugar, was very dry.
And you probably weren't driving the howitzers around. You're flying. Assume you're flying them.
Half the time,
Airlifting?
yes, half the time we went in air assault, and the other
Right.
half we were towed by 2.5-ton trucks.
What were the people like when you were over there?
They were friendly. When we were in base camp, we hired the widows of South Vietnamese soldiers, and they got paid 8 cents a day to work on the hot sun filling
Wow.
sandbags.
Just building bunkers and stuff like that kind of.
Yeah, and we would build the bunkers and that, yes. But it was quite a shocker to see the standard of living from what you were used to in
Compared
the
to the
United
US, yeah.
States.
And were you in any of the major cities over there, like Saigon, or were you pretty much out in the villages?
No, we were out. The closest thing we came to a village is when we went in air assault to Rock Ken, and all the teachers had been massacred, police, and elders of the village. The North Vietnamese had taken care of all of them, and there was just peasants left. Nothing but rice paddies.
Wow.
It was down in the Mekong Delta, and the enemy had opened the floodgates at the high tide, and we lived in water. We actually walked around in 2 foot of water
All the time.
most of the time. When I came back home, my feet were raw hamburger. I had no skin left on my feet.
Wow. So, and Rich, when you hit the ground running over there and you went out to your base, you were out in the villages, I assume. You weren't really.
No, we were at the bottom of a Nui Ba Din, that's a Black Virgin Mountain.
But you weren't in any cities or anything like that. You weren't.
No, it was where we were at. They had communications at the top with the Green Beret and some of that, and we were at the bottom. And then around us, it was a free fire zone. There was anybody wandered in there. They don't
They
care
just
what it
shoot
is.
at
You
it.
just shoot them. There's nobody supposed to be around because there was Viet Cong all over the place.
What'd you feel like when they told you you're going home?
Good.
You're
I
ready.
looked and I
You're
said,
ready
I
to
got
go, right?
everything I came here with.
And you want to go. What about you, Ken? When they said it's time to go, how'd you feel?
Relieved, glad to get out of there.
So, Rich, when you hit the ground running back in the States, where'd you fly into?
I was assigned to Fort Riley, Kansas.
Did you fly into Oakland, California, or where'd you come back to?
I think it was California.
How long did you stay in the Army after you came back from Vietnam?
I was there till my enlistment was over.
What'd you go on to do after that?
I went to school because I got a, what do you call it, a GI Bill.
GI Bill?
And I took heating and air conditioning.
But you Ken, where'd you fly into?
We first landed in Alaska, and from there we came down to San Francisco. And then I went through the military processing center and got discharged.
What was the first thing you did when you got off base? I mean, you hit the ground back in the States. What's the first thing you did?
Well, I got from the airport there. I flew up to Frisco. My mother had a brother there, and the first thing happened, I get off the plane, is I got some hippie girl spitting on me, calling me a baby killer.
California.
Yeah. And after I spent a week there to unwind and to see my uncle, then I flew back to Cleveland.
Where do you live now?
I live in Valley City
Valley
for
City.
the last 25 years.
Okay, all right. So, what do you think as far as, I mean, obviously, any regrets about your service?
No, not at all. It was quite a learning experience.
What about you, Rich?
No, I would want to stay in, but when you're young, you get to go out and learn how to take care of yourself.
You think it shaped you for what came ahead the rest of the way in life?
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I know you're active here with the VFW. Are you engaged in any veterans organizations or anything?
I belong to the VFW, and I used to do a lot, and especially enjoyed going out to the VA hospital.
Right. There's a lot of people
That's
at the
why
VA
I
hospital that-
became service officer here to try to help the veterans that are coming back,
Right.
and maybe give them some advice on how to apply for benefits and what's available.
Well, I want to thank both you gentlemen for coming by today and sharing your experiences. Any last words?
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.